Here's what we reveal about the Pacific Plate in 2025 with this incredible deep ocean current footage. But first, why do we care so much about plates? It's because the slow and sometimes fast dance of these giant slabs of Earth's crust is behind some of our planet's most powerful forces, like earthquakes and volcanoes. And while scientists have been mapping these plates since the 1960s, there are still many blank spots. That's because 2/3 of Earth's surface is covered by water, and exploring the depths of the ocean is hard. But new technologies are helping us fill in those gaps. Like this high-resolution bathymetric map of the Atlantic Ocean created in 2022 that revealed details we didn't know about the Scotia Sea Plate before. But what does all this mean for the Pacific Plate? Let's get started with a refresher. The Pacific Plate is one of the largest of Earth's roughly a dozen major tectonic plates. It's named after the Pacific Ocean, which it mostly underlies, except for a small part of Antarctica. It's also known as the Farallon Plate, or the Eastern Pacific Plate, to distinguish it from the larger and more complex Antarctic Plate, which also lies beneath the southern half of the Pacific Ocean. To the east, it's bound by the North American, Caribbean, and Cocos plates, while to the south, it's flanked by the Nazca, Antarctic, and Australian plates. Finally, to the west, the Pacific Plate meets the smaller Juan de Fuca microplate. This meeting isn't exactly peaceful. In fact, it's pretty dangerous, which we'll get to shortly. So how did this plate come into being? Well, it formed around 30 million years ago when the supercontinent of Gondwana split apart. Now known as the Australian and Antarctic plates, Gondwana's breakup created a new ocean basin, and the Pacific Plate began to form as a result of this rifting. It continued forming as the Farallon Plate, drawing material from the east as the seafloor spread. Over millions of years, the western edge of the Pacific Plate has crashed into the eastern edge of the Australian Plate, creating a subduction zone. This process created a long, deep trench called the Peru-Chile Trench, which runs for more than 7,500 kilometers. Scientists once thought that the western edge of the Pacific Plate was perfectly locked up with the Australian Plate, but recent research suggests otherwise. Researchers analyzed data from an 8,500 kilometers journey across the southern oceans aboard the RV Tangaroa. Using a technique called long offset, double-couple super slow-slip events, or LODA quakes, they detected 11 low-magnitude earthquakes along the plate boundary. These megaquakes were too large to be regular earthquakes, but not quite big enough to be slow-slip events. By measuring the locations and timing of these events, researchers were able to reconstruct how the plates move past each other. The results suggest that instead of being locked together, the Pacific and Australian plates grind past each other along a 2,000 kilometers long section of their boundary. And because this movement was recorded so far south, it means that the northern part of the boundary must also be creeping. So even though parts of this area had previously been thought to be locked up, it's likely that most of the plate boundary is capable of slipping. And while this discovery may seem like just another obscure piece of technical knowledge, it actually has important implications for understanding earthquake risks in the region. After all, these quakes could potentially trigger bigger, more destructive events. But let's move on to something even scarier. Along the western edge of the Pacific Plate, there's a chain of active volcanoes known as the Ring of Fire. This ring stretches from New Zealand to Japan and includes some of the world's most infamous volcanic sites like Mount Fuji and the Mariana Islands. In November 2022, this ring became a bit more fiery when a magnitude 8 earthquake struck just off the coast of the Kermadec Islands, a small archipelago belonging to New Zealand. The quake was so strong that it generated a tsunami, but fortunately there was no significant damage to property or loss of life. But it raised concerns about the region's volcanic activity. Scientists had already been monitoring the islands closely, as the country's National Emergency Management Agency had raised the threat level to Level 2 in October 2022. This was due to increased volcanic unrest at the island's submarine volcano, which had been detected by a network of local and regional monitoring agencies. The unrest had begun in April 2022, with a swarm of earthquakes, followed by continuous low-frequency earthquakes and continuous volcanic unrest. All of this activity caught scientists' attention as it was happening much closer to the surface than usual. Submarine volcanism is common in the region because the Pacific plate is sliding under the Australian plate and the rising magma forms mountain chains. However, it usually happens deeper under the ocean. Fortunately, the earthquake and tsunami didn't lead to an eruption, but it was a reminder of the volatile nature of the region. And that's not all. The Ring of Fire is also home to the Mariana Islands, a U.S. territory located in the western Pacific Ocean. On February 23, 2023, a magnitude 7.4 earthquake shook the islands, causing some damage to infrastructure. But it was the following day that things got really scary. On February, the United States Geological Survey reported that a steam explosion at Mount Veteru had sent an ash cloud 20 kilometers into the air. While it wasn't related to the earlier earthquake, it was yet another reminder of the region's seismic activity. Ash fell on the nearby island of Tinian, forcing the temporary closure of schools and government offices. But thankfully, there were no injuries. Moving north, we find the Eurasian plate, which is colliding with the Pacific plate along the eastern coast of Russia. This collision is responsible for the large and complex system of trenches and volcanic arcs, known as the Circum-Pacific Belt. One notable feature of this belt is the Mariana Islands Arc, a chain of islands that includes the Mariana Islands and the Bonin Islands. The islands are formed by the subduction of the Pacific plate under the Philippine Sea plate. Another significant feature is the Eurasian Pacific Gap, a region where the two plates appear to be moving away from each other. However, recent studies have suggested that the gap may be an illusion caused by the complex interactions between the plates. In fact, the two plates are likely colliding at an angle, leading to a complex pattern of deformation and volcanism rather than a simple subduction zone. These findings were based on a detailed analysis of the region's seismic activity and the structure of its deep mantle. The study also revealed a previously unknown channel of hot material rising from the Earth's core through the gap. This channel, known as a mantle plume, may play a role in the region's volcanic activity. Finally, we come to the western edge of the Pacific plate, where it collides with the North American plate. This region, known as the San Andreas Fault, is one of the most seismically active areas on Earth. The two plates are moving horizontally past each other, and the immense pressure and stress that build up along the fault line eventually release themselves in the form of earthquakes. In 2023, a 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck near Ojai, California, just over 100 kilometers from the city of Los Angeles. It was felt as far away as Las Vegas and San Diego, causing shaking but no significant damage. Such earthquakes are relatively common in the region, and scientists use sophisticated instruments to monitor the fault lines and predict their behavior. Understanding the movement of these plates is crucial for predicting and mitigating the risk of earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions, which makes studying them all the more vital. This year has already given us some fascinating insights into the workings of our planet. High-resolution maps, earthquake data, and super-slow slip events are just some of the tools helping us understand the complexities of plate tectonics. As technology improves, we can expect even more discoveries that will shed light on the processes that shape our world. Thanks for watching this episode of CI Show, and thanks to our supporters for making it possible. Your support allows us to bring these videos to everyone for free. If you would like to help us keep it that way, please consider joining our team.